podcast, Picks and Perspective with Chrys Johnson. Palpable.
To each other. What's up, Kyle?
How's it going, my shreddy yogi brother?
Bro, I'm just teaching yoga, and I don't know if I'm really that shreddy, but I like to play like I am sometimes.
Hey, that's all that matters.
Yeah, and playing is like, that's what we do, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're any good. It's just as long as you have fun.
Thank you, because I feel awful most days.
Dude, I'm one of the most overrated bass players in the metal genre. Like, everyone's like, "Oh man, you're great," and I'm just like, I just know how to pretend like I am.
I hold it down. Yeah, I wouldn't say I would. There's probably a few guys ahead of you in the overrated. I'm not going to name names, but I'm just saying, there's probably a few.
Oh man,
you up this early, normal? I mean, it's not that early, but are you up early, or you kind of make an exception for me today?
No, I mean, I think it really just depends. Like, ever since COVID started, I've had like this really like weird sleeping schedule. Like, for a week, I'll be going to bed at like 11. Maybe the latest midnight, waking up 6:30, 7 in the morning, being productive with my day. And then there will be like a month of just like sleeping until 3 or 4, like, going to bed at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, sleeping till 11:30. And I'm kind of transitioning out of the 4 a.m. to 11 a.m. sleep schedule. And I'm kind of transitioning back into the earlier sleep schedule, which is good. And I got this Whoop strap thing. It like helps track your sleep and how many calories you burn, like how much sleep you need to recover fully the next day. And I broke it this morning, so that was fun. I feel like, because it's like it clasps on like a watch, and it was like, it felt it's ever since I got it, I felt like I couldn't open it up. And so like this morning, for some reason, like something startled me awake this morning. I have no idea like what it was. And then I couldn't get the Whoop strap off. So I felt very trapped. And then in a panic, I just like pulled it too hard and broke the strap. So I felt very claustrophobic when there's something on me.
Sure. Do you wear it during the day? Is it like a Fitbit?
Yeah. So you wear it 24 hours a day. The only time they're like, we wouldn't suggest wearing it in the shower. You can if you want to. But I was just like, I don't really want to wear this in the shower. So I was going to go shower, and I was like, just get this thing. And then I pulled it too hard and I broke it because, I'm just a POS.
Bro. I mean, it's kind of interesting to think that there is somebody out there wearing it in the shower, tracking their calories for, soaping themselves up and lathering, and like, I mean, that's kind of comedy. Right?
The thing I appreciate about it is that it does track your sleep. You don't have to charge the thing every single day, but it also gives you like a heart rate variability. So it's just like, my heart rate variability is terrible because I've gained so much weight over the last year. So it's like, they say the lower your number of heart rate variability, I guess, is better, or I could be completely wrong.
Better health scenario, right?
Yeah. Because it's like my heart rate is between just on a normal day doing nothing is between like 80 and 120. Which like 120 is like, you're doing like a brisk walk, and that's just me living my life.
So it's been rough then, what is what you're saying? This last year maybe a little bit tough on your health and tough on...
Well, mainly I think it's just been tough on my mental health, which in turn has messed up my physical health.
Sure.
I was actually talking to Doc about this the other day. We were talking about habits that we have acquired over the last year that are going to be the hardest to break. And Postmates, we agreed, is the hardest habit to break, because when everything first happened, we had just gotten back from Europe. We had just gotten back with going out with Megadeth and Five Finger Death Punch, and I really I really had no idea what to think, what was going on. You know, and I think for a lot of us, you know, me especially having asthma, they're like, you know, oh, people with breathing problems, like you might be fucked. And I'm just like, well, that sucks. So I just, you know, I hunkered down for about, I think 7 or 8 weeks. Didn't really, you know, leave my house. I mean, luckily I live in a house, and, you know, I have a nice sized backyard. So I would go out and, you know, get my morning vitamin D. I'd like to sit outside in the sun in the morning for about an hour and just, you know, hang out. So it wasn't like I was like literally just trapped in my bedroom for an entire year. I was going out there, and then I tried doing the home workouts, and then I realized how non-motivated I was when I wasn't like around other people. Now, granted, you know, I do have roommates, and there are other people that live here that do work out, but it's like, I don't like their schedule, you know? But, and, you know, and with not leaving your house really that much, you know, I kind of became dependent on the food delivery apps and, you know, delivery services, like even to deliver groceries, you know, 'cause I didn't know, I think in March or April of last year, I don't really think anybody had an idea of how severe this thing was and how long it was really going on. Now, being it's late May of 2021, there seems to be a light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm feeling much better about it now. Like, you know, now I just been getting on me like, all right, dude, it's time to start eating like a normal human being and not like a child with a credit card. And, you know, maybe get on that, that exercise bike, you know, a few times a week, and, you know, just try to shed, you know, the COVID 30.
Bro, yeah, it was a COVID 10 in the first few months.
Yeah.
And then it was COVID 20 by the end of the year for sure.
Yeah.
Now it's definitely a COVID 30, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me especially.
Not everybody, but yeah.
Because I remember in 2019, I was the biggest I had ever gotten. And I remember we had just gotten off the road with Papa Roach in the summer of, it was like the end of summer, September of 2019. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to hunker down and I'm going to get in great shape. And granted, the way I was doing it, it was not a sustainable lifestyle. But for those like 6 or 8 months, man, I looked great. But
were you doing keto or something, or what was your deal?
So what, I was in a massive caloric deficit every single day, but I was also doing massive weight training as well. I had hired a personal trainer, whose name is Eric the trainer. He's a great guy. Yo, he looks like He-Man.
Whoa.
Like if He-Man was a real human being, that's what Eric the trainer looks like. And, you know, he has a very high profile clientele, and it was a very good vibes gym. Like he's a really good, like good vibes kind of guy. Like you could be in a really bad mood and then enter the gym, and he was just like all smiles, gives you a big hug, like we're gonna have a great workout today, you know. Cool. And I met him through Mike Kruger from Nickelback, and, you know, he was like, dude, you got to come to the gym with me, because I was living with him for a while. And I just kind of started after the Papa Roach tour. I was just like, you know, I'm going to eat right. You know, I'm going to work out. So I was working out like 4 or 5 times a week, you know, anywhere from, you know, 650 to 850 calorie burning weightlifting workouts a day, but also being in a massive caloric deficit. And I lost like 45 pounds in 2 months.
Damn, that's awesome.
And I was like, wow, I haven't been this, you know, I went from 226 to 188 between September to December. And I was like, dude, I haven't been this small since, I don't know, ever. Probably since high school.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, we got home in December from tour, and I went out with Devin Townsend to do 70,000 tons of metal. And, you know, that was my vacation. I was like,
that was the last time I saw you, was when you were prepping for that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Over at Mates.
Yeah. And I kind of used that as like, I was like, all right, this is my vacation. And, I let loose, and I was supposed to meet like Logan Mater at the gym one day. I was supposed to meet, Bubble at the gym one day. I never showed up. I was like, I was like, this is my vacation. And then, we went out to Europe, and I wasn't shitty in Europe. There's luckily there's great food choices in Europe, but I wasn't working out as much as I used to. And then come home, lockdown, no gyms, Taco Bell,
Yeah.
Massive depression. And I'm a stress eater.
Mm-hmm.
And
same.
And the first few months I was really good. I was able to keep myself like, all right, I didn't gain too much weight then, but it was kind of towards after summer, towards like September, October, I was starting to notice like, oh, my t-shirts don't fit anymore.
They don't feel as comfy as they used to.
No, they're a little tight. I gotta stretch out the belly area a little bit more.
Yeah, you're shopping around for dad bod shirts. You're like, hey, what's up with that? I like the way that looks.
Yeah. Well, it sucks because like I bought a lot of really cool t-shirts. I have a weird obsession with t-shirts. And then I found myself, I'm like, well, that shirt didn't fit really well. Maybe I'm going to go to a XL now. And then like, I went from like hesitantly buying XL shirts to like, now if I find a cool shirt, I have to buy it in large and extra large because of the one I want to wear now. And then the one when I lose the weight.
When you get that hot girl summer look back.
Yeah.
No, dude, you're speaking like my language exactly. I'm a stress eater. I have a handful of friends around me. They're like, oh, when I get stressed out, I can't eat a thing, and I'm like, I wish, dude. I know that it's not a picnic on either side of this fence, but I would take that one over this one because I'm emotional eater, and that's been something. But knowing once you know that about yourself, then you hopefully can cultivate a sense of kindness and forgiveness towards yourself. That is your main modality and how you process things, right? How you deal with your trauma or your depression, and be you kind of know what to do. And you've just outlined that like a pathway back to where you want to be. Yeah. So that's good, man. And
it was so funny.
I'm in your corner.
I was talking to Andy James not too long ago, and I feel like I'm just like this. You might as well just call this podcast the Name Drop Podcast.
Oh, it's the Name Drop Podcast.
So I was talking to Andy James. He's one of your guys' artists over there at Kiesel Guitars.
Yeah, one of our top guys.
Yeah, Andy, I love that guy. And I remember me and him, we met on the Death Punch tour. Well, I mean, we met before that in the summer of 2019, like properly met. But we really got to know each other when we were out on tour together because it was his first tour out with Death Punch. And, me and him would talk, every few weeks during COVID. I mean, even now. But anyway, so I was having a conversation. I was like, yeah, man, he was telling me like how much weight he's lost over COVID. And I was like, Jesus Christ. I was like, what about the weight I gained? He's like, well, what the fuck you been doing, mate? And I'm just like, I'm a stress eater. He's like, well, if you know that, can't you just stop?
Stop stressing, mate. Just get on with it. Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I guess I could, Andy. Yeah, that's totally logical reasoning. But he's like, well, if you know that, just don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's actually proper advice, right? Like I can't argue with it, except for it the emotional content gets in the way, right? Like the emotional and the depressive content. There's a bit of a block there for a while, and it takes a while of like sitting underneath the weight of whatever's going on. You kind of gotta get sick.
Depression will like make you be able to make excuses like, they say like one bad meal is not going to make you fat, but if you're already fat, it's because you're eating a bunch of bad meals. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like your mind plays this trick on you where it's just like, well, you can have a few tacos. It's not that bad.
Tacos will be the death of me. That's my favorite.
Burritos too, man. Jesus Christ. I mean, we both live in California, different parts of California, and I know you lived down here in Los Angeles for a while, but it's just like there's something about LA Mexican food, man. Like, don't get me wrong, I love all types of Mexican food, but I grew up what I like to call Baja style Mexican food in Los Angeles. and it is just you can go to like any place, any hole in the wall Mexican restaurant, and as long as it's like no less than a B, you're probably going to get some really good Mexican food. Actually, me and my drummers, one of our favorite Mexican places is in a gas station.
Oh yeah.
Literally inside an Arco off the 170.
Again, bro, we must have been separated at birth or something, because like I mean, Chico, I'm back in my hometown, and there's great tacos all up and down California, but I personally, it might be partly nostalgia, that I think that this town strangely has some of the most gangster tacos of all time.
I don't doubt it.
I regularly have people that come up here and visit me from LA and the Bay Area, and through COVID, thankfully, it's kind of saved me a little bit, and having some people to interact with and stuff that aren't freaked out. And but I take them on taco tours, right?
Mhm.
So I'll be like, yo, okay, we're gonna go over here, order 3 tacos. These are the crunchy tacos that are the most best in town, and then we'll go over here and order 3 street tacos. And then if you got room, there's some grilled tacos across town where they got quesabirria, and they got a Mexican au jus, and we dip the dude, it's
crap.
so ridiculous. You can dip these tacos in this like Mexican au jus sauce, and it's
Now, see,
yeah.
I've never been to Chico, but I've always wanted to go. One of my really good friends, he lived in Chico for a while, and he went to the college over there.
Sure.
And like, wasn't Chico like nominated like biggest party college
Through the 80s and maybe through most of the 90s, I think Playboy magazine multiple times like chose it as the #1 party school like in the nation, and there was like few others that kind of competed with it, but this place had its time of being nuts like for a few decades, and
Yeah.
it's interesting to be here now under these circumstances, right? Because it's very, very tame in comparison. Like you ride my bike through like College Town, and there's like 3 or 4 parties going on, but like normally it's like every house is just
bumping,
just gnarly, and you're just like, you can roll into any of them, be like, yo, how much for a cup? And they're like, cups in the back, to pay the dude with the hat. I don't know. Come on in. You're in somebody's party, and you might stay there. You might be 3 houses down by the end of the night, or, in the gutter. Who knows?
That's hilarious, man.
It's kind of gnarly. Go ahead.
Oh, I've always wanted to go, just because, like, in my early 20s, I really loved Sierra Nevada. I used to drink Sierra Nevada. I know that they're up in Chico. And I like to party. You know what I mean?
Well, the invite's open, man. I got an extra bed here. I got extra mountain bikes. I'll work you out, man. I mean, I'm still a fat kid, but I'm a really active fat kid. I do a lot of yoga and stuff. So and it's hot up here. We got lots of mountain biking and hiking, and I do the fun workout stuff. I try to do the stuff that like. I actually got a gym membership now. I teach at a gym, and I'm going to start like doing more regular gym stuff. But like I'm admittedly like kind of like regular squats and gym stuff. It feels good, but
when we get older, I think that's the trick. It's like you're not working out or exercising to be like a big buff dude with 6-pack abs. You're just like, I work out because I'm a piece of shit.
And I want to eat tacos, bro.
I want to eat tacos. I want to eat tacos and drink beer and drink dark liquor and have a candy bar every now and again, or maybe an ice cream.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I see. And I think that's what I'm starting to figure out. And I was actually going to hit you up not too long ago about suggestions for yoga stuff, because in October, I discovered I injured my back. And I have a mild bulge. It's like a 0.3 millimeter bulge in my L5S1, and it's the second to last tail, before the
low back.
Lower back. And the doctor was just like, bro, he's just like, just do these stretches every day. He's like, honestly, if you wanted to do some yoga, you probably lose a little bit of weight, and being flexible isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I have a handful of people hit me up all the time for little stuff like this, that and he's not wrong, right? Like the whole deal, and I've found it out for myself, kind of fluctuating weight and flexibility even while being a yoga teacher, and having a fairly regular practice, but that little bit of extra weight and the lack of usage on the frontal body, right? Like not like working the core on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Usually when you have a back problem, they go, oh, it's not a back problem, you've got a front problem.
Yeah.
Like you're not the core isn't engaged often enough. It's not strong enough. So when you engage and strengthen your side body and your front body, your back, that protects your back and protects your spine by doing that work, right? So offline, I mean, I'm happy to help you, thumb through it and see what I could offer you, like to engage that in a better way and try to hopefully ease some of the pain. Are you normally in pain, like kind of on a daily basis at this point?
No.
or
it was really bad for a month. Like basically I was cane ridden for about a month and a half. I needed a cane to get up, to get down. Like it was pretty bad pain. And it wasn't so much the actual bulge that was causing that pain. It was the inflammation surrounding that bulge that made it like, bro, I had to get like a brush on a stick just to wash my body properly in the shower because I could not bend over. I couldn't stand for long periods of time. I couldn't sit for long periods of time. So it's like me with a cane in my bedroom, moving from my chair, sitting down, to like different positions of like, reclining, just so I wasn't staying like stagnant for too long. Like I would, I'd only lay down for 20 minutes, but I'd make sure that, my legs were raised or, whatever, so sitting in different positions. And then, through that, walking properly, like my left leg could not go in front of my body. It could go as far as my body, but then it could not go any further, like as I was walking.
Man, that's rough.
Now I'll feel it every now and again if I'm working hard, I know when I lifted something the way I shouldn't have. That's that's for sure. And working as a local stagehand for like almost 11 years now, there's certain ways that I have gotten into the habit of doing things and I'm like, I need to stop that, and I catch myself, like, you're not picking that up right. Like, don't worry about carrying 288 key corgs side by side in your hand. Like, just carry one, man.
But I only want to make one trip.
Exactly.
Damn it. And it's going to save so much seconds, right? Yeah, we're silly monkeys, man, that rush around and try to get things done, and we think that we can multitask in these ways, and while being not so mindful about our movement, right? And that's and more than anything, I think that if you did get into a little bit of yoga with me or anybody, like the thing that I find that a lot of people start to recognize that is maybe the greater benefit of the practice is that if it's being taught and led in an authentic, sincere way, is that it's the attention to the smaller things. It's the mindfulness that starts to flow out from the practice into our lives, so that when we do, like you're talking about how you've had to become more mindful, that the pain and suffering has caused you to be awake. Yeah. When you're in pain and suffering, man, there's nothing better to, in a way, to shock you into doing the right thing. You're like, oh God, okay, we're going to do it the right way because I don't want to feel that.
Yeah, exactly. And, on the, like I said, the last few tours, I was really mindful of how I was eating, and I feel like when people watch me, I'm kind of like guilted into eating well. Like, I'd go have lunch with my friends. And, if I get something like, aren't you supposed to be eating healthy? Jesus. All right. Well, I'll just have
Bro.
another arugula tuna salad then, I guess. But I remember Doc, who is like infamously has had a bad back since I think he was born.
Wow.
But he started doing DDPY. You know, for people who don't know, that's the Diamond Dallas Page's yoga, and he really was like, you know, it's kind of strength training as well as yoga. And I never tried it, but I was like, you know, maybe I should do that with him. And then when it was funny, like I had started going back to the gym. I was like, all right, maybe I'm gonna start doing the DDPY. And then that's when I hurt my back. I think it was just from, you know, 4, 5, 6 months of being you know, a couch slob, and then like, you know, a few months back at the gym, because I was able to go back to my personal trainer because he would have limited people indoors. He'd have a woman coming around cleaning everything. He had one of those air ventilators that had the UV disinfectant. Like he put like a crap ton of money into his gym studio, and he would only do like four people at a time. And I started going back to the gym. You know, I was like feeling real good about myself, and that's when I hurt my back.
Did it happen at the gym?
No. I was working a gig, helping out one of our clients, and so I was lifting a very heavy subwoofer off of a monitor rack, and what had happened is that I think the person I was lifting it with, it's kind of slipped out of their hands. So it was one of two things was going to happen. I was going to catch it and go down with it, or it was going to fall on my leg and possibly break my leg.
Oof.
So I decided to bear all that weight, and I went down, and I was in kind of like a squatty potty as it came down. And then when I got up, my back was like, no, you're not doing that. And I got up, and I was just like, oh crap. And then, you know, I went to the doctor. I went to the chiropractor. I had an MRI. He was like, you know, he was like, a bulge in the L5S1 is one of the most common back injuries. It was like, most people have it. Most people don't know they have it because they'll hurt it once and they won't hurt again. But he's like, this is totally reversible. You need to lose weight, first of all. And you need to do these stretches, you know. You know, he's like, you really need to engage the erector muscles in your core, which is the muscles that help you stand up, the muscles that help you sit down.
Right.
And he was just like, you just need to do these things. And, you know, for a while, I would do these stretches every day when I woke up. You know, I felt like I was like, I can't get out of bed until I do my morning stretches. And it helped a lot. But then, you know, you start to be a piece of shit.
Oh man. Well, we gotta start by changing your verbiage, man. You're not a piece of shit, dude. We get lazy, and you know, like that's part of it. And you gotta, I mean, I don't want to tell you gotta do anything, but it's difficult. Like we're still it's like we're not out of the woods with this whole thing, right?
No.
Like we're not out of the woods with the COVID. We're not out of the woods with the different ways of living our lives, and we're not out of the woods with residual trauma and depression from the last year of living through this, right?
Yeah.
So I think that you know, to approach it purely in a physical way is to, you know, kind of be in denial, or is to ignore the rest of it too, right? Like, so the rest of it, there's a big part of it that is mental, like we're talking about. And you know, if we can kind of approach ourselves in a kinder way, because once we put on weight, man, and then we get back into the gym or back into thing, we oftentimes like also kind of expect too much out of ourselves in the beginning, right?
Totally. So there's this massive expectation of like, oh, you know, my body's going to react so well to this. And it's like, after a week of going to the gym, you're like, oh, sick, I gained 5 pounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the whole, like, everything that you just said, I completely agree with. Like, I've been kind of on the mindset, like, you know, when I've been doing my podcast or talking on other people's podcasts, is that like, I tell people we've never lived through anything like this before. So what your own personal reaction to this type of trauma is okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you gained weight, cool. If you lost weight, great. If you were able to get more ripped than you ever were able to, that's amazing. Good for you. But everyone reacts to trauma differently. And that's exactly what this has been. We've never, like, especially in the technological age, that we're like stuck at home. Like, we're lucky that we have outlets like this, like, you know, doing podcasts, the internet, you know, Netflix, you know, because I feel like, yo, if this happened in like 97,
I was gonna say, like, what if this was 95, bro? We'd the world would just be in chaos. I think everybody would be breaking out. I don't think we'd be able to deal with it because we don't have all these. We're not connected in this way. Back in that day, in that time, you know. And
there was no way you could have locked people down in like 95. They'd be like, oh, yeah, sure. I mean, you know, that kind of happens still now, and you know, whatever. I'm not going to get into the you know, the political side of it, but I really think it would have been a lot harder if you didn't have all of the things that we have now. Like I said, you know, like Postmates, you know, Ralph's and Albertsons will deliver to your house.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, you really, between, you know, Amazon and Postmates, there wasn't a real reason to leave my house,
right,
other than the occasional walk around the block, or, you know, to go catch some rays in the backyard.
Yeah, my first few months of the pandemic were there in LA, and I was already hooked on, you know, using Postmates and stuff anyway, because my parking situation wasn't great, and who wants to go out and
you were
fight
living
traffic?
in Hollywood, dude.
Yeah, dude, it was horrible.
That's literally the worst place to want to park a vehicle. I remember because I dropped Devin off at your house, and he's like, "Oh, you should come in for a bit." I was like, "Dude, there is no parking around here. I'm not trying to."
yeah. So brutal. But yeah, I'm thankful that there, in a way, I have DoorDash and stuff here, but the options are nothing like they were in LA. Like, LA's just got everything. In Hollywood, like, I could order really fairly clean meals to my house, right? Like, really, here it's mostly like tacos, burritos, pizza, you know, that type of stuff. There's one spot to order like kind of more healthy food, but
dude, Tender Greens here. I think I've probably spent the most amount of money at Tender Greens, because for me it was like guilt-free delivery.
Right.
Because I would have, you know, 6 ounces of steak or chicken, and I would have a real big baby spinach salad with, like, you know, a raspberry vinaigrette, goat cheese, and peanuts, and like, you know, a little side of, you know, mashed potatoes. I'd be like, it was guilt-free for me.
Yeah.
But like, when you start doing that like 3 times a day,
right, and that bill goes up, and you know, all that. Well, I'm curious, man, because like catch me up with the band, because like Tommy left, right? And I'm a little unclear on all that stuff too. I'd just be I was like going back today and before we jumped on today, and I was like, I had seen that Tommy started up his own thing, and I was like, so what is this? I just missed that he left the band, and I don't know under what circumstance. So maybe that information is all out there and clear, but I'd love to hear from you.
The information is not all out there and clear. I will say there is a narrative out there, and I can't agree that it is the truthful narrative. And even saying that, I've probably said too much. Okay. But Tommy had left the band in early January, and it's been, let's just say it's been fun since then.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I can't really get too much into it, just because there's still legal stuff going on right now, and you know, that's unfortunately not something I could talk about right now. But I will say that, you know, we've been in the studio, we're working on the finishing up working on the third Bad Wolves record, and cool. And we're super excited, super hopeful for the future. And, you know, with, like I said, the light at the end of the tunnel, we're very much looking forward to getting back out there. If as Bad Wolves, or maybe not, so.
Okay, so is the you have a new vocalist then though, right? DL, is that?
I can't talk about that either.
Can't talk about that either. Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
I cannot confirm nor deny.
Got it. All right, well, no worries. I guess what I will go back and say about the band is just that congratulations on being in a super successful band, because I remember, prior to this project, the Scar the Martyr and in this moment, were also great projects. In this moment, maybe obviously quite a bit bigger and all this, but when this took off, it was like you guys, it's almost like you guys kind of came out of nowhere in a way, like in the scene in my periphery, you came out of my peripheral, like, and it was, and a lot of it maybe was, do you think it was a big part of it was like covering the Cranberries thing and doing that single that really kind of helped launch in a way? Or
I think it was a Molotov cocktail of the perfect situations. And I don't mean perfect as in all of it was good, because we did lose an extraordinary artist in Dolores O'Riordan, and
Right.
We were lucky enough to have her blessing and her wanting to do the track with us. And unfortunately, she had passed before she could, and we were really conflicted when we were going to release the song, because we're like, this is a really a good song. Tommy had did it with his former band, like back from like 2016, and as we were releasing going to release our first record, they're like, we really need that one hit, so if there's anything you guys have that you haven't maybe used from previous bands, send it in. So Tommy redid the lyrics, or redid the song vocally, and then they were like, this is great. And he was the PR, I believe he was the PR manager for Better Noise Music at the time, but I think now he's like vice president of Better Noise in the UK. Dan Waite. He was like, he was basically just like, hey, I used to manage the Cranberries in the 90s. I could reach out to Dolores and see if if we get her blessing, see if we can do this. And we actually heard the voicemail that was just like, wow, I really love this song. The boys did it really good. Maybe could you ask them, if I could be on the song with them? I think that'd be really cool. And kind of from there, like I said, we released the song, and we were like, how do we do this in a way that kind of honors her memory and not tarnishes it? Like, we don't make any cash from that song whatsoever. But we decided to donate any of the proceeds that we would have gotten from that song to her children. So I think like later that year, we were able to donate like $250,000 to her kids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, within a very short amount of time. And obviously that's, the biggest hit that we've put out. But, we've been able to kind of continue to show who we are as a band by releasing, and I'm not trying to slap my dick down on the table, by releasing four consecutive #1 rock hits.
Yeah.
And I it's so funny living in Los Angeles. I think because I was born and raised here and I grew up in the music scene, like I've been playing shows since I was 13 years old. I've been around the music industry since I was 17 years old, and I really have this weird kind of imposter syndrome, but I'm also like kind of super jaded about the music industry, that I don't really think of myself as like, I don't think of myself as being in a big band. You know what I mean? And to outsiders who are just like, man, like all these numbers, but I think we're all like this. By we, I mean, John, Doc, and Chrys.
Yeah, you guys are all street level, that's for sure.
And I think it's just from our backgrounds. John came from Devil Driver, granted, successful metal band. Doc was in God Forbid, again, another successful metal band who I think has probably acquired more of a cult following since their disbandment than any band I've ever. I mean, I've always loved God Forbid.
Yeah, they're great.
And Chrys was in For the Fallen Dreams, Bury Your Dead. We all came from like this really work hard genre of music. Like you can't be lazy and be in a metal band. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I was very fortunate enough to start my career at a higher level than most people do. And I'm very self-aware about, you know, I've had to do maybe one tour in a van. You know, I've been very lucky that when I stepped into the music industry, I was able to start touring in a bus, have crew, you know. But that doesn't mean I didn't still pay my dues and work hard.
Right.
Because I think if I just was like, all right, this is it for me, you would have never heard from me again outside of In This Moment. And I knew even then, I was like, well, you know, you kind of fucked up this gig, but, you know, it doesn't mean I'm going to stop, because I've known that this is what I wanted to do since I was 8 years old. And so I just had to work better. I had to be a better player. I had to have a better tone. I had to have, you know, a better right hand than most guitar players out there. Like that's one thing I've always tried to do, is just have like, I want to be able to sync to the kick drum if we're doing like, you know, 16th note triplets at 220. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing, like, you know, I've really looked up to in guys like John Brown, you know, who's got like one of the best right hands out there right now.
We all agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And I learned a lot from him, you know, because he did the last Vimic tour ever. He actually played the last Vimic show ever.
What?
Yeah, we did 10 shows, or no, I'm sorry, like 5 shows in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And I hired John as our backline tech for Vimic.
Okay.
But I also needed someone who I knew could play, because I had to leave the tour before the last show, because I had a work contract that I had signed that I couldn't back out of, or I would get fired from that job.
Oh, and
So
he filled
John
on your spot.
Yeah, he played bass on the very last Vimic show.
Oh, I missed
So
that.
for people who don't know who Vimic is, we transitioned from Scar the Martyr to Vimic. But it was, you know, that was a pretty heavy hitting band. You know, Joey Jordison on drums,
Yeah.
Mr. Jed Simon from Strap Young Lad,
All hail Jed,
on guitar. You know, Steve Marshall on lead guitar, who had replaced Chris Norris. Matt Tarek on keyboards. Kalen Chase, who used to be in Korn for a few years. He was the bunny in Korn.
Okay.
And yeah, that was actually the last show we ever did.
Wow.
So John Brown played the last Vimic show ever on bass guitar.
What a trip, man. John Brown is I mean, he was legend years ago, but like at this point, like that guy, I mean, every time I've ever worked with him, there's something about his whole presence that is just disarming, and he's a happy, you know, sweet dude that like just slays harder than 98% of the rest of us, you know, like it's easy to be in awe of him, is what I mean. Really,
he took something that we all really like about James Hetfield and made it better and more accessible, because not everybody likes Metallica. That's fine. And not everybody likes Monuments, but there is something about John Brown's attack that you just, the way he kind of does like that kind of thing. Like, yep. I don't know, but his attack it's like, I feel like his picking hand, when he has a pick and he's getting to that string, it's like Bruce Lee's 1-inch punch for guitar players. You know what I mean? Like he is able to get a massive amounts of attack without having to like, I feel like he can get more of attack doing something like this than like, you know, than anyone just doing like that.
Right. The big strum.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, speaking of picks and attack, like run me through how your relationship to guitar picks began. Cause you are, you know, there's only, I don't want to say there's not that many, but I mean, it seems like it's there in the wide world of bass playing, there's less bass players doing picks than maybe with picks, right?
Yeah.
And I think you do pretty well with both, but with all this heavy music, you have to use a pick, I imagine, to keep up, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can play with my fingers, and I do utilize the finger technique and the slap technique, and and now with Jacob Umansky, I've been learning the double thump. But I started playing guitar. I got a guitar for Christmas when I was, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old, and the first picks that you kind of get, I think everybody starts off with the first pick, the orange Dunlop, the .60 millimeter. And I used the regular shaped ones for a really long time. And then I would, when I was within this moment, I was using a 73 gauge. I moved to 88 gauge. And then even when transitioning into Scar the Martyr, I was using a 73 gauge. And I remember I randomly found, like, I'll just bring it up here, the fucking
triangle
pizza slice.
Yeah.
The triangle pick. And Jed's been a big triangle pick guy for a long time. And he's like, dude, I love those. And I was like, oh, orange one. I haven't tried an orange one in a while. 60 millimeter. Because like I said, I was using 73, 88. And ever since then, I picked up the 60.60 millimeter triangle. And it's like the perfect guitar pick for me. Now, granted, for guitar, I still like to use a 73 or an 88, but if I can get them in the triangles, I will. There's just something, like, I don't know, I feel like no matter where because I sweat a lot when I play, if I can spin around the pick, there's no bad angle,
right?
And I just feel like I can hit, because I hit really hard. I feel like there's almost like a bit of like compression when you're using a small, like a thinner gauge pick than with a massive, with a massive thick quarter. And I don't know, I've just always really, I feel like I can pick faster. And I don't know, like, people like, really, that you use .60 millimeter? And I'm like, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I'm going through it in my head right now. I'm just like, the big thick bass strings with those thinner picks. It's like, I don't think I've heard anybody, I can't think of one anyway. There might be somebody that I've talked to along the way that uses that light of a gauge for bass. Usually it's a minimum of like 73 or like 88 or 1.0 is where I
can't.
No,
there's just something, like, I'm so used to it right now that I can't, even if like I forget my picks, which I totally have done before, and I'll ask Doc or Chrys to use one of theirs. They're using either the Jazz 3 or the Sharp, the teardrop style picks. And I'm just like, it's too beefy. And I feel like my wrist technique goes out the window with those. And I feel like I'm just stumbling over the string instead of playing through it.
I see.
Because because of it's easy to bend even at the tip, and where I feel like I can play through it. Whereas if I'm playing with a larger gauge string, I feel like I'm warbling around it instead of playing through it. And it's not clean sounding. It's real messy. I feel like I'm just like stirring an entire pot of spaghetti. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, the thicker pick, and it causes you to change how the pick is held in your fingers, right? Because when it's a thinner pick like that, you can stay fairly stiff, and the pick does the movement, does the workaround more so. When it's the more stiff, then like the way you hold it has to be a little bit looser.
Yeah.
In some ways, you have to allow or angle it the right way and then if you were to be left on a desert island with an 88 or a 1.0, you'd figure it out, man.
Yeah. I would hate it, but
you'd be like hating life the whole time. But like, finally I pick you up in a few years and be like, I can finally play like one song. It's amazing. And I still hate it. Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. So it was mostly Tortex. I know you did In Tune for a while too. Are you still doing In Tune?
Yeah. I'm still doing In Tune.
Is that your latest custom print there?
It's one of them. Actually, I think I have some right here. you know, Bert's been really good to me, and you know, I've been with him since the Scar of the Martyr days, you know, and I have little picks for sale on my store. It's
Cool.
KyleKonkiel.bigcartel.com. But yeah,
Badass.
you know, it's just I love the triangles, and when I do my custom picks, they're all like, I make it so it's like I don't do them like, I do them in the same gauge that I would play. So it's like when you get my picks, regardless, it's going to be a gauge that I would play. I think there was like one time I did like a 73 gauge with like this camo style pick, and I hated it.
That's good though. But when somebody's purchasing stuff from you on your website, that they are getting something that you play with, and that they can actually turn around and keep a couple, and then play what you're using, right? So that's
cool. I mean, you know, I have this little ashtray right here that's just full of guitar picks, you know, and you know, I always keep a bag of Tortexes, always, just because, you know, I don't know, I feel like although they are the same shape, you know, if you were to like put two of these together, they're the same shape, same size. Jesus, I couldn't say that word of crap. But I don't know, I just feel like Dunlop is just one of those brands where it's just like, regardless if you have, you know, if Intune has similar picks, like you just gotta have a bag of Dunlops around, like regardless. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Bert and I love Intune, and they've been really good to me, and they will do any crazy design that my crazy brain will come up with, and I'll have it within like a week, you know. But I feel like any of the picks I like, I always have to have, I don't know. Like,
look at this. I got this one right here.
Oh yeah, dude, seriously, you could be, I'm dead serious. People are so hot on that pick. They want, they're like, that is the most wanted, the Baby Yoda Devin Townsend pick.
Yeah,
because that's I only ever made one bag of those, and and I only gave them away on 70,000 tons of metal.
I'm putting this up on eBay.
You could probably get $100 for it.
Oh no, it's gonna. I need $333 minimum. Okay, you know, that's the reserve. I'm gonna leave it right there.
I don't know, dude. I grew up with this little guy. You know what I mean? Look at that. Look at that turtle bastard.
Yeah. No, everybody loves the cute little tortoise, man. The Tortex tortoise.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, Dunlop has done such incredible work. I mean, you know, working. I knew that they were the boss of picks. I knew there was other people that made picks before I worked there, but I didn't realize how big it was until I stepped inside the doors, and I was like, oh wait, so like, because you kind of you start to do market research, you know, being part of the marketing team, and I'm like, oh, okay, so like the next biggest pick company next to Dunlop is like, you know, it like the spread business wise is probably $8 million, you know, like they do probably well over $10 million a year in just guitar picks.
Yeah.
Just guitar picks. And then Dunlop's got, you know, who knows? But like, that's probably $8 million more a year than like the average other guitar pick company out there, you know, because they're all small time, and it's just like, it's almost like Google, you know, you go, oh, guitar picks are synonymous with Dunlop. You know, and in that way where like, you're like, oh, you got, well, I play the orange ones. Well, you don't even say Dunlop. You're like, oh, I play the orange ones.
Yeah.
Play the yellow. I play the green, you know?
Yeah. Well, they color coded it, and they've been using that system for so long that it's when you go to the guitar shop, because you've like in your head, your guitar pick is synonymous with a certain color. I mean, you know, like I said, like, and I didn't like, you know, I didn't get these for free. I paid for them. I went down to Tour Supply and I got a bag, you know, like I went and I'm like, oh, there's the orange ones.
It's
and that's why
if nothing else. Right.
Yeah. You know, and because you can just, the colors right there, you're like, oh, okay, you need some yellow ones. It's just easy. And I didn't even know what gauge I was playing until I was like in high school. People were like, you know, like what gauge guitar pick, when I was still playing guitar a lot more than I was, playing bass, I'd be like, oh, I use the orange ones. Like, oh, you use the orange ones. You need to use the yellow ones. You need to use the green ones.
Dude. Yeah. Well, and that's the way it goes. I was the same way. I used the green ones forever, and it was mostly because I like the color green. Dimebag Darrell played them, and I think I read somewhere that Chuck Schuldiner had used them. So I was like, I mean, if those two guys use the green standard guitar picks, then there's basically nobody really needs anything else,
We'll see. What sucks?
Untrue,
my favorite color. My favorite color is purple. I cannot play the purple.
Oh yeah, the 1.14s. You're like, no way.
I mean, dude, I did use the 73.73 millimeters for a long time, and I was really kind of stuck in there. And I think, I don't know, like they were so much more rigid. Like you think that small of a difference between a 0.60 millimeter and a 0.73 millimeter wouldn't really be that big of a difference, but it's just so much more rigid. And at the time, I liked that. I was in my early 20s. I could just plow through the string then. But as I gotten older, I'm like, it's so much more effort to play how I play with a heavier gauge pick than it would be to just have a 60. And like, it's like a stamina thing. Almost.
So what's your string gauges and tuning currently for the band, or do you have multiple?
I mainly have one, which is open G. So when I went to do Devin Townsend, it was amazing. I didn't have to change the tuning on any of my basses.
Badass.
So we tuned to my 5-string basses are tuned to from low to high GC G. And for a while I was using the 175 0.175 low, big, massive bass string. But more recently through the pandemic, I was like, you know what? I really feel like once you get past a certain gauge, you lose all tonality of that string. It's just there to be low. And I'm like, I don't like that. I want there to be character to my low string. I don't want to just go, like I want there to be a vibe to it. Cause I just, I want to be able to do bends and, and slides. And, I want to be able to slap that string and not just be slapping just nothing. So I went from last year to this year, I went from a 175 in the G to now I'm using a 160.
And what kind of strings are those? What brand?
I'm kind of going between, because D'Addario stopped making strings. They started doing PPE masks.
Oh,
last year
making strings.
I don't think they like stopped making strings, but they kind of shut down their artist program.
Oh,
and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know. I bought some strings through them, but I've also I'll use Dingwall strings, which is the brand of basses that I play. And but more recently, I got into this company from the UK called New Tone Strings. And mainly because I play a very long scale bass, it's really hard for me to find strings that I want and that will also be tapered where I need them to be tapered. Because when you're playing with large gauge string between even at 160 through 175, they need to be tapered just right.
Right.
And New Tone has a bunch of Dingwall sets. So I kind of just email them and tell them like, hey, I want to do this type of set, this type of string. And they're like, yeah, sure. Cool. I mean, it's going to take a little while, because they're mailing from the UK. But yeah, right now I'm using a 160 for my low G. And I'm kind of going back and forth between like a 120 and a 130 for my C. I think 125 is probably going to be pretty good. And then I'll do 80, 55, 45 if I'm playing a 5-string. So, and that's just G.
That's another whole rabbit hole, especially if you're playing non-traditional scale lengths,
in non-traditional tunings.
And that's another thing that I didn't understand how deep that rabbit hole went until I was at Dunlop and they make strings, and we were like, trying to make strings for different artists, and we're realizing, oh my gosh, just in the guitar world, you know, between like a 25.5 scale length and a 27 baritone, and then having to measure how far out the headstock goes and which configuration. Was it a reverse headstock that made the low string way far away, you know, after that, you know, and was it string through body? And then you know, like some artists we were making strings for had that exact thing, that a string through body setup that was, you know, reverse headstock, and so the string has to be extra long and extra thick. So we're like dealing with an 8-string guitar, and you know, so there's finding the right string manufacturer that understands what instrument that you're using and how you're using it can be tricky. And then add in that you're a bass player and it's extra expensive, you know,
dude. Like, it was so funny. Which I'm not trying, like I said, I'm not trying to slap my dick down on the table, but for those of you who don't know, I was actually the reason that D'Addario started making longer scale lengths readily available to the public, is because I would literally bother them and be like, cool, I need another 175. So they're just like, you know, we're just going to fucking make these, so you just order them on the website. Which I find is funny that I can't get them to, you know, return my emails.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease until they don't want to hear you squeaking anymore, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know, it happens.
Yeah.
But that was a massive rabbit hole to go down to, just mainly on the fact that, like, I started doing that when I joined Scar the Martyr, because most of our stuff was tuned to F sharp. You know, they were playing 8-string guitars tuned down to F sharp. And I remember I was like, how am I supposed to do this? Now, tuning up, I could have done easily, you know, just could have used a 95 gauge bass string and tuned up a half step on a regular 4-string bass and it'd been fine.
Oh, yeah.
But they're like, no, we want you to tune down. Or Joey said he would be like, oh, I want you to tune down. I'm like, all right, cool. Keeping the octave relationship with an 8-string guitar on a bass. Sick.
Yeah.
So, you know, and that's where this was in 2013, where tuning that low and keeping that octave relationship, it didn't really exist then, except like not even Meshuggah was doing that. The only band that was doing that at the time was Periphery. So of course I went down this massive Periphery rabbit hole, and like, you know, I would try to like message Nolly or message Misha, and it's funny, like going back now, because like me and Misha and Mark and shit will talk online, and I'm just like, man, I used to punish the fuck out of these guys, and I don't even think that they know it.
Yeah, they're like, who, like, oh, that guy Kyle back in the day. Oh, not you, Kyle. It wasn't you. It was the other guy. Yeah.
But you know, and just trying to figure out. And then I remember one NAMM, Nolly was there because he was just introducing his signature Dingwall bass, and I probably punished that guy for 15 or 20 minutes straight. I was like, bro. And he finally, he's like, all right, this is what you need to do. At the time, Dingwall wouldn't take me as an artist. Callium didn't want me as an artist. So I was just like, sick. Then I would just order Callium strings without a discount. Like, bro, those sets of strings can be like $75.
I believe it, especially at those gauges.
So I was, you know, I was using Schecter guitars at the time. And anytime I could afford to, I would get a set of Calliums and do it the right way. But for the most part, I was using a 145 because that was the biggest I could, a tapered 145, because that was the biggest any manufacturer would make.
Yeah, that's big for most people, most everybody, right? Like, so when you say 160 and 175, I'm just like, Jesus. So
I mean, like, the biggest gauge string I've ever had on my bass was when I was finally, you know, a little bit more financially stable. I was still using 35 regular standard 35-inch scale 5-string basses, but I had a 182.
Oh wow, who made that?
And I tuned that was Callium, and that was tuned to octave below E.
Drop Z.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, and then, you know, luckily through my travels, kind of tuning low has become more the norm because of guys like Devin Townsend and bands like Periphery and the Meshuggahs and the guys that kind of paved the way for crazy creative. I mean, I love the open G tuning. Like my one guitar that I have here is tuned to the open G tuning, and it's so fun. Granted, I have a few other brands of basses that I don't take out on the road with me. It's very rare that I put them in the Bad Wolves tuning, like just because I miss playing in standard so much.
Sure. Yeah, you got to have something that's like home, right? That you come back to. No, I'm thankful. That's like, I remember back in the day having 3 or 4 guitars, which is still like a total boon. But being in a touring band and always like I had everything in my drop C tuning because I always had to have a backup and blah blah blah, right? So then, but you always have to have something at home that you can come back to. And nowadays, I'm like, I have like almost 20 guitars here or something. I'm like,
Jesus,
it's so wonderful to, and a handful of them aren't mine. They're kind of like loners,
Yeah.
But to have a guitar that is like drop D, and then I have a couple of 7s that are all in drop A, and then a couple of 6s that are in drop C, and a lot of them in standard. Like I love the fact that like all these years of playing metal, and I was like, oh, drop C or fucking die. Like I like all these years later, I'm like, I'm growing into a dad because I love standard tuning, like
I think in my humble opinion, I think where a bass guitar sounds the best is in drop D. Because it's and like drop D with the strings that came with the bass. Just drop that low string down, and I don't know why. Like just drop D on a 4-string, Music Man or Fender, what have you, is just like that's what a bass guitar should sound like. I don't know why.
Well, I do know why. I mean, like it's what we've been programmed. Like we've heard that the most, right? Or maybe not drop D, but like close to a standard tuning, right? Like it's in the same way. I look at it this way. Working at Ampeg, I all these years ago, I remember trying to figure out why Ampeg amps to me after I audition all these different amps and kind of do shootouts in the product development meetings and stuff like that. I was like, man, Ampeg just slays everything. And then at least at that time, and I was trying to figure out why, and I'm like, oh wait, but because I've heard Ampeg the most.
Yeah.
It's part, in the early days, you mostly heard B15s and SVTs, and maybe a couple different things in between. And then that whole era of 80s, you heard a lot of SVT2, right?
Yeah.
And SVT2 Pro, like you heard Geezer Butler, and you heard a lot of those guys. And then into the 90s, hearing Mike Inez and Mike Starr and those guys, Alice in Chains, a lot of the grunge movement all had Ampeg backing them up. And think about the tunings that they were using, even the grunge tunings, they didn't go too deep. Drop D, maybe a standard D, I don't know. Not a super low stuff.
I know Alice in Chains was only was in E flat, so half step.
Yeah, just half step.
Sometimes they would do drop C or drop C sharp, but very rarely.
Yeah, I just think that the nostalgic aspect of it, right? At this point, after consuming this much music, through the years, it's easy to go, oh, well, I mean, like, that's the thing I'm kind of trained. I'm trained to like, that's what the sound of bass.
I mean, I mean, that totally makes sense because like, I think of like, a Music Man bass tuned to drop D played through a Heritage 810 and a VR or a B4 or a V4B, it's just like, you really don't need anything and anything else. If that's what you're doing, boom. That's perfect. Yeah. That is what bass is supposed to sound like. And I'm not discrediting any of the other brands out there, but it's like, to me, if you handed me a Music Man and it's in drop D and like, cool, I need you to play this gig, I'd be like, cool, Ampeg all the way, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot that has come out that's really wonderful out there in the bass amp world. I mean, Ampeg will always, hold its own as long as the companies run okay, and thankfully now Yamaha has it and they're doing a much better job at treating it fairly, treating
Yeah.
it like the legacy brand that it is. I'm so thankful for that. Because like back in the day, like even though I had a good time working for Loud Technologies and cut my teeth there, it's like we'd always look around.
That's where we met.
Did we meet when I was at Ampeg?
Yeah, I used to do your inventory at Mates.
That's right. Oh, right. Yeah. That. Oh my God, man, what an interesting time. Yeah, because that makes sense. That's right. You did. And you did.
That was me and Britt. Me and Britt would do your
the Van
inventory.
Nuys location, right?
Yep.
Yeah. You took care of our locker, man. Thank you. By the way, I feel like so much work. I mean, people don't. This is like, let's stop. A side note that like working in the industry is such a pleasure and such a privilege, but it is so difficult in certain places, right? And all of it's a little bit weird for different reasons. But working for an amp company, and not just any amp company, but like
the bass amp,
the bass amp company that has the quintessential 810s and super heavy SVTs and all that stuff. Man, it's such a crazy thing, full of glass nonetheless too. And you ship them around the world, and they were perfect when they left, but they somehow broke all the tubes by the time they got to Sydney, Australia, or even just a couple states away sometimes. So you're just dealing with constantly trying to loan stuff out to people that, and you guys took care of our specialty stock a lot of times.
Yeah.
Like I'd like, hide this for me down there because somebody's going to be coming through and they're going to do a TV show. And I don't want
it was specialty stock and your NAMM and Bass Player Live stuff.
Right. Yep. That was, I know for a while we had in the early days, we had the Heritage SVT B15 stuff hanging out there too. I don't know if they still use Mates in that capacity, but
a little bit, but not really as much. Like we used to have a lot of Ampeg shit.
Did you ever deal with Jen Plonsky at SIR through? Maybe not, because it was Mates, and she's just like when I think of Ampeg and dealing with cartridge companies and stuff, she was the big homie. She's out in New York though. She's always taking care of, like that's like your best friends are the cartridge and backline people when you're at Ampeg or an amp company, because so many people want to do a fly-in and they're like, I don't want to do it without my gear, and you're like, well, we got to pay for somebody to cart it over there and put it on the Tonight Show for you, or something like that. But, man, that's a trip. I hadn't thought about that, and I knew like your name and our correspondence goes back that far. Yeah. That's awesome.
Well, because then after you worked at Loud, you went to EMG, and then that's when you and I like really started working together, was when you were at EMG. And that was back in I think I went and visited you at the EMG factory in 2014.
Yeah, that'd been like my last year there, actually.
Yeah.
But like I think we were in correspondence in like maybe 2011, 2012, 2013 or something, right in there.
Yeah, probably.
I remember you did came through at that time. That's right. Yeah, man. So I'm curious, like with the pandemic and everything, I mean, like you've had more time to kick it, right? Like are you doing anything on your own? Like, do you have any side projects or anything that you can talk about?
No, yeah. I mean, I have like, things that I do for fun. I wouldn't really call them like side project, and it's really not like a secret type thing. I just, like, being in metal for like the last 20 years, I've found myself needing different types of outlets, and I found that with like synthwave music.
Really?
And I'm not that I'm like great at it or anything, but I've found a lot of solace in writing synthwave bass driven music with with a lot of different synth sounds and like Lynn style drum machines and Oberheims and Moogs and what have you. And I don't know, it's just refreshing. And then like there's kind of been like a resurgence within the last year and a half or a couple of years of 80s type, new 80s synth wave, synth pop, whatever you want to call it, dark wave, and just getting into like, I don't know, like the pop aspect of songwriting. And that's kind of how I got into it, was via synths and keyboard stuff. And I just find it really refreshing, because it's just like I go from like, I know people hate the term, but gent style guitar riffs to like bubblegum poppy bass lines. And I don't know, it just I really enjoy writing music on my keyboards and drum machines and stuff. And I just feel like, this is something like it's mine, it's nobody else's. And even if sometimes I wish I had someone to write music with, I'm just like, I can just do whatever I want. It doesn't have to release. This doesn't have to, people don't have to listen to this. This is could just be like my dirty little secret of random synthwave stuff I have in my computer. And I've been doing that. And I'm always writing in some way, shape, or form. I'm trying to get better at it. This last year I was, I upgraded all my computer stuff, my interfaces, to just, and like trying to figure out Logic was like a big step for me this last year, because I always have random ideas, regardless if they're good or not. Like, I just felt like I should always be writing. I should always be recording, and just making myself a better musician, because I know where my strong points are. And I definitely know where my weak points are. Now, like if you need a riff, boom, I got you a riff. But it's like, if you need a structured song with a great chorus, like writing choruses is not my thing, unfortunately, which, is the thing that sells the song to people. Sure. And, I'm trying to just sit here and, I've been taking, like I said earlier, I've been taking bass lessons from Jacob Umansky. I've been learning a little bit of theory and how music works, because I was all self-taught. I don't know, besides a random pentatonic scale here or there, I wasn't really trained to play guitar. I was just like, there's a power chord. There's this, figure it out. And that's what I did. So, being 34 years old, taking bass lessons for the first time, it's like, I feel like it's taking me a little bit longer for it to click. But I'm hoping one of these days it's just like, okay, there it is. But I'm not sure if it ever will. I really got to sit down and think when I'm like writing a song, like, okay, like, am I doing this, correctly? Which, I mean, there is no correct way to write a song. It's just, I try to like do it where it makes sense. Because you can't like have like I mean, I guess you could. You can't have like the song is kind of in B minor and then have a random, D sharp chorus. It just will sound weird,
Yeah, potentially, right? Yeah, most likely. It's interesting to hear you to tell me that, because as I was revisiting some of the Bad Wolves material, I was just like, man, one of my questions that came up was like, did you guys intentionally come into this kind of with, because there's plenty of heavy elements. That's like almost, and in this day and age, I feel like I don't want to say it's easy to be heavy. That's not what I mean to say, but I'm saying it's like, it's
more accepted to be heavy.
Yeah, more accepted to be heavy, and almost like a given that you gotta kind of, you gotta throw your dick around a little bit and kind of like we're badass. But the tougher part, oftentimes, as you're outlining, is to write a really good chorus, right? So I was gonna ask, like, how does that work in the band dynamic? Do you and Doc throw a lot of stuff back and forth, or is somebody come with a big full-fledged ideas and you kind of try to help it out? Or how does that work with you guys?
So like, for the most part, like, so when I joined Bad Wolves, the first album was already written and recorded.
Oh,
so that was already, they're like, all right, here's all the songs, learn them,
got it.
Which John wrote, I don't know, 90% of that record, our drummer, him and Max Karen, who was actually the original guitar player for Bad Wolves, but he decided that he didn't want to be in the band, that he would rather be the guy behind the scenes. So now he works for, he's worked for bands like Devil Driver, Ghost, guitar tech guy, and one of the smartest. Like, he reminds me a lot of Devin in ways. Like, I really wish I could get them two together and like have them write an album, because Max's writing style is just so unique. that I think him and Dev would just like, they would either love each other or fucking hate each other.
Yeah, or cancel each other out. Sometimes I think that with certain people, I'm like, oh man, these two people should get together, and then they're like, oh wait, you guys are like geniuses on your own. You got to do your own thing. Like,
yeah. But so when we were doing the second album, I was actually going through a terrible breakup from a long-term relationship, and as I would try to write for the record, I was unsuccessful. You know, my brain wasn't in it, my heart wasn't in writing for the second record, and you know, we had John had expanded from not only just writing with Max, but also writing or taking full songs from producers. You know. You know, and we did that with a couple of songs on Nation, the last record. You know, like 90% of it is kind of like us, but you know, we're not you know, there was also other outside writers, you know what I mean? And you know, I know you brought up DL earlier, but you know, he wrote a chorus for The Consumerist, the song that we have on Nation. Like he wrote that chorus, you know. And it's just doing what's best for the song and getting your ideas across, but also, you know, you want to sell records too. You know, you want to be a viable, you know, you want to be a viable artist. You want to do, I mean, granted, I would do this job if I didn't make money, but how much better is it if you can actually get a paycheck from doing the thing that you love?
Right.
You know, so and then, but with this record, it's kind of gone through the ringer, man. I mean, we've been doing this record. John started writing for it in March of 2020, before the pandemic, and you know, we've recorded, wrote stuff, recorded vocals, recorded new vocals, recorded, you know, done stuff, gone back and forth, rewritten a bunch of different songs. I think we're finally getting to a point to where it's like, you know, like I think we're almost done, but because there's no real, I guess, rush to that, we're just kind of trying to make this, you know, I think a third record is super important. And I mean, regardless of having to get a new singer, you know, you've already kind of established who you are as a band. And I get it now that having a new singer, it kind of gives us a little bit more freedom to change our identity a little bit, because there's going to be a different voice now, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I really feel like this record is not only important because it's our third record, but I feel like this record has to be the best record because now we have something to prove.
I see,
you know, we got to come out guns blazing, or people are just gonna be like, meh.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like there's definitely an uptick in production and overall like cohesiveness of Nation. I mean, I the first record is great too. It's like you guys really shine, and it's cool to hear that you allowed some outside influence, because I know that it's a tricky thing, like especially in a band environment where you might have a primary writer, and it sounds like John is in a lot of ways is the primary guy. He's a multi-instrumentalist as well.
Yeah.
So that's cool, and that's unique in itself that you have. You know, it's not that often that you have a drummer that kind of leads in that way. So that's cool, but to employ outside efforts, maybe close friends and writers, as you're saying, you know, they're kind of loosely associated with the band, and then other producers or full songs that you bring in to make the best product possible and put your best foot forward. And if you're employing a similar, even mildly similar processes, I'm sure you guys are gonna knock it out of the park, you know, because
well, I mean, with this one, there is a lot more. I'm a lot more like, because I'm there, you know, I actually played on this record. I sang on this record. I wrote for this record. Granted, I didn't write as much as, you know, maybe, you know, John did, but it's like I finally have, like, we got a Kyle riff on the record. We got a lot of Kyle vocals on the record. You know, I played bass on this record, you know. Not the whole record, I'm not gonna lie, I play bass on a few songs, but just how John writes with Max, it's just easier. Like he records bass too, and it's great sounding bass, So there are songs I did play on this record, but it's like my voice is more on this record than anything. But it's like, but I'm a lot more emotionally invested in this record now because it's like I'm on it, I'm in it. Like I wrote, a verse riff that made it into one of the songs that's definitely going to be on the record. It might even be on one of our first singles. You know what I mean?
Cool.
So I'm definitely a lot more emotionally attached to this material because, when you go through a change, when someone, when your voice of the band kind of leaves and you have to write stuff, I feel like we came together more as a band now than we have ever in the past. I feel like there was a lot more inclusion during this process, and there was a lot more of a hive mentality than it was just two people. All right, I'm gonna go write the heavy songs. Cool, I'm gonna go get the producers to do our radio songs. Like, and I think, and I'm sure I don't know if I'll get shit for talking about, people that having producers and stuff write certain songs or whatever. It's not all of our songs. Like you can tell which songs I feel are written by us and John. And, sometimes you need help. It's not, there's so many people. It's like, bro, you like one of the most popular songs from the last year, Blinding Lights by The Weeknd, was fucking written by 8 people. Okay.
Yeah.
Do. That was written by 8 motherfuckers. Okay.
Yeah. Well, so, it's not uncommon in the industry. That's the thing that I think.
But I know what is and I'm sorry to cut you off. What is uncommon is people admitting to it. Because I really think that there's this gravitas and ego that comes with like, we're in a metal band, and although it's a known thing behind the scenes, I don't think that it's like people don't like to admit that, maybe somebody else wrote their biggest hit,
Yeah.
I mean, granted, that's definitely the case for us. That's definitely the case for us because our biggest hit was written in like 1993. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like it's kind of like a taboo thing. Like, oh, you had the producers write that song. It's like, no, sometimes it's just good to have another set of ears. And sometimes we need certain types of songs that need to go on, that we want to go on the record. And it's like, we take them, we bad wolvesify them, and there it is,
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's nothing to be ashamed or weird about personally, because I think collaborative efforts are king, period. Yeah. That's why you're in a band, is you want to collaborate. Right. And, I understand certain bands are closed circuits and they want to come up with everything and have minimal outside influence, and then some people can do it, right? There are a few people out there, Devin Townsend being one of them, right, that could and can create from zero to finished product better than most other people, right? But even him, as he and I were starting to really become friends back in whatever that was, 2008 or 9 or something, he was talking about, even right at that moment, he's like, look, I've been able to do a lot of the stuff on my own for a long time, but I have found a lot of merit and a lot of like subtle juiciness from having other people participate in the recordings and in the live things, right? Because it becomes a monocrop, and it becomes too, like, in certain circumstances, when you have too much control over a thing, then you don't give it space to bloom into something. And when producers get money for a reason, because they help you tighten up your game, and they help you go, you know what, maybe not that. And unless the artist or band is super adamant, no, this is the message, and this is how it has to go,
which we have totally done, no, this is how this song goes.
You have to have a sticking point, right? And and just in life, man, like we're all co-writing each other's thing, right? Like that's the part of it that people need to maybe loosen their grip around a little bit,
and like I said, it's like 90% of our material is our material.
Right.
Is that, started off with a John idea, and maybe got a a Doc idea in there, and then a Chrys idea or a Kyle idea, and then it kind of has turned into this thing. And then we have the producers that are there, Josh Gilbert and Joseph McQueen, have them like kind of make it this cohesive thing. And sometimes, very rarely, there have been songs that it's like, here's the demo. Oh, cool. That's exactly how it'll be. That's how it was when it came out. It's very rare. And I think like, and being closed-minded, it's like, when you're doing something and you're like, people will submit songs to you if you're like, oh, I heard they're writing, like, cool, I'm gonna just submit a song to them, see if they like it.
Yeah.
Or we will go out and ask them, guys like Scott Stevens or Drew Falk or whomever, and just ask them like, hey, you got anything cool? Like, and we don't use their product, like whatever they send us, it's not like we use it down to the T. That's another template, be like, oh, cool, we really like this idea, but we're going to change this idea. But it's still like the original template came from somebody else. So it's like, we're not just like sitting there and like copy paste recording guitars and bass and drums.
Right.
Like, that's a cool idea. We're going to make it our own. Granted, they also get writing credit, and they also get paid for their work. And, it makes the world go round. And it's like, like I said, I'll probably get shit if anybody close to the band hears this. I really don't care. I just think it's just like it's so taboo, and it's like, let's not be afraid to like say that, hey, a lot of bands work like this. And I'm not just talking about like I'm not talking about the bands who are like not popular or not mainstream. Think of any mainstream artist. I mean, the guys who are on the radio with us, like Five Finger Death Punch or Shinedown or, whomever, 3 Days Grace,
This guy's all using producers though. Like, I mean,
some
level.
But I mean, even Adele, Lana Del Rey, Billie Eilish,
it's more present than in those, and the more poppy you get, the more tendency you have to have got a track or two that written almost completely by somebody else that you made your own and turned it into something else. And it's in the top of the top in the pop world, and where it's maybe more of a commonplace thing than anywhere is probably in Nashville, right? Like, because you go to Nashville and like a lot of people don't even know what they're working on. There's all these different session players, all these different session people, session writers. There's writing groups where they just get together and let's share this and that, and they're okay with it being like a village that creates a song, versus in the metal. I think it's in the metal and rock. It's like people want to swing dicks, and be like, yo, dude, like, oh, you couldn't write a whole album by yourself. It's no, motherfucker, I could write that shit. But we wanted to make something really good. And like, we're not opposed to taking help from, other professionals.
Yeah. And I just think, and you do see this a lot in the pop world, and which is why I think, which is why I feel like it just should be more well known. It's just like, people taking credit for songs that were written for them, but weren't written by them. You know what I mean? And I really think that people should just give credit where credit's due. And now I'm not saying that I'm some amazing songwriter, but I'm just saying, give credit where credit's due. And don't be afraid to say that, like, like, who fucking cares? You like the song? Yes. Do you not like the song? Cool. Don't listen to it. You don't like it. You like it?
Yeah.
Cool. Like, it's not like we're using, hundreds of people. There's like 3 guys besides that aren't in the band or in our in the producer circle. Like,
Sure.
Like, that's not really a lot.
No.
And it's like I said, and I know I'm sounding super defensive now, but I feel like I kind of cornered myself into this.
You're getting riled up, Kyle.
It's not all of our material. 95% of the material has started with an idea from either John, Doc, Chrys, or myself. Yeah.
Well, and I not to beat this, I'll switch the subject here in a moment, but I just to further the point, though, I have a good friend of mine who has been friends with Deftones for a long time, and ended up in a couple of recording sessions, just getting to hang out while Chino is laying vocals, and I'm going to screw up. I don't remember which. It's been a while ago, but I can't remember which album it was. But it's a memorable part where there's this melody that Chino does, kind of one of his cool haunting melodies, and it was my buddy that was sitting there and kind of heard it in his head, and he was just a friend. He's not a producer guy. He's a friend of Will Haven, worked with Will Haven and other local bands that kind of are between Sacramento and Chico and Deftones, played here a lot through the years. And my buddy gave it up in the session, was like, hey, I'm hearing this, and that ended up in the song. And like, you could get, again, I don't know, you just never know where the cool stuff is going to come from. And I personally am all about collaboration. I by myself, if I have to create a thing from scratch, maybe I'll come up with something cool, but usually I do my best work in collaboration.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that there's just nothing wrong with that. But to switch gears, I'd love to know, like, what are you listening to? You got anything that you could share that maybe you found over the last year or something that you're like, dude, the world needs to know more about this artist or these players?
I mean, honestly, I kind of just been listening to a lot of new 80s or whatever, bands like The Midnight, FM 84. Man, I don't even really know. I've been listening to more podcasts than I have been listening to music, which is kind of weird considering I'm a musician or whatever. Okay. But I kind of just like, I don't know, I felt like burnt out from everything that's out there. And I've been listening to a lot of like pop. I've been listening to a lot of I don't know, man, like just a bunch of different random stuff. And I try to go down rabbit holes of different types of pop music or different types of synthwave. And there's this band that I really, really, really enjoy, synthwave. That's kind of like heavy metal synthwave, the Dance with the Dead. And
Dance with the Dead?
Yeah, like Slayer.
Okay. Yeah.
And they're great, and there's a few other artists that I've been listening to, and I'm kind of just like going back and listening to some of the records that everybody was like gloating about over the last year, because I feel like I've missed them. Like, I've been checking out the new Architects record and the newest Bring Me the Horizon. And but I mean, other than that, man, like, and I feel bad, I probably should like name some stuff, but I'm kind of drawing a blank here.
I really enjoyed the last Deftones album. I like all the Deftones stuff pretty much, but I thought this album was pretty exquisite.
I have not listened. I'm so bad with that, and I feel sometimes I feel like I'm like letting myself down because I get to albums so much later. Like, I don't know, when someone tells me like, "Oh, you gotta listen to this record, man," I'm like, "No, I don't."
No, I go through that too.
Tell me how to live my life.
Yeah, you can't tell me what to do. You ain't the boss of me. Yeah, it's like,
you're not my dad. You don't pay my rent. Don't tell me what.
Stop it. You're not my mom. Yeah, like I get it, man. The more popular thing is, oftentimes I delay my approach to it. But Deftones is just always a yes for me. it's been a yes since the fucking first album, man. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's, I mean, and even though there's like one album in there, or I always say it, there's not a full album that I don't like. There's like a couple of tunes throughout the whole catalog I'm like, not my favorite, but I mostly am a yes. And when this album dropped, I really like the lyrics, especially in the first couple tracks. And I love Steph, and I love, to me, Steph is, I love that band is so popular and he is so revered because he's not the most technical guitarist out there, but he's a writer, and he's got a method. Like there's a method in the band, and that's one of those bands that, while they do take some outside influence here and there, right? They're predominantly a closed circuit, and they've been pretty tight for a long time, even adding a member or two and replacing the bass player. And they kind of know what they're up to, and they know when they got it, and they tend to not have to and it at least appears to not struggle too much to be themselves, right? And do the thing. So yeah, I'm just a fan. I love that album. What I was going to get at is that Steph is kind of zen in his simplicity, right? Like he chooses stuff that I think the rest of us would be like, what? Yeah. Like you're coming into this big writing session with that simple riff, and like he's all stoned out and like, yeah, bud. And like, but his guys know. Like Abe, Abe is one of my favorite drummers too, because
he's a sweetheart too. I love that man.
Dude, what a sweetheart, dude. Like, and
that whole band is sweethearts.
Yeah, agreed. I'll just love on them forever. But I want to just say, like, and maybe this is part nostalgia, but Abe and the way that he interacts with what Steph is up to, and the way that they come together, it's just pure magic for me. I'm like, neither one of them are super technical. So neither one of them would win the world's fastest or most anything.
Yeah.
But I like them more than a lot of people because I'm like, there's so much restraint, and they take you somewhere. Like the songs build and they do a thing. So
hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm just, anyway, maybe put it. Hey, I'm not tell you what to do, but maybe, like,
what? I think I will. I'll check out the newest Deftones, and I'm sure that there's something new out right now. I'm just like, I don't know, man. I get into like these moods where I'm just like, I feel burnt out. My ears feel fatigued, and I'm just like, I don't really want to listen to music. Like more often than not, I find myself just like, if I'm driving to work or what have you, I find myself more often than not just driving in silence. Like,
yeah, that's fair. And I would love, can you tell us about a couple of podcasts that you dig? Is there anything that you follow pretty regular? Or?
Well, I'm gonna give Doc some advertising here, but he actually has a really good podcast, the X-Man podcast with my guitar player Doc Coyle. I think is a really great. He is so smart and he is just so well spoken, and I don't know, like Doc makes me think in different ways than I would have normally if he wasn't in my life, and I really appreciate about him, and I also appreciate his point of view being able to come from different points of view. Doc has a great podcast, and mainly if I just want to like just listen to like whatever, like I've been listening to Two Bears One Cave, which is that Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura.
Oh shit, dude.
Because like I listened to I listened to the Rogan podcast for a while, and I kind of just got super burnt out. Like now it's like if I do listen to Rogan, it's mainly guest dependent.
Yeah.
Like the Dave Chappelle one I thought was great because I wanted to hear what Dave Chappelle had to say. Like
always want to hear him. Always.
But now it's just like, I don't know. I feel like it's a stupid, easy to listen to podcast where it's just two friends who have been friends for a long time, who are both comedians, who fucking just make fun of each other and can laugh at each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just it's super light. you know,
Yeah,
like I'm not trying to like dig deep into like, you know, quantum physics or the thought of parallel universes all the time. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
but actually when, on a side note, what I found out that Dev and I actually listened to similar stuff after rehearsals. Because when I was going to drop him off at your house, he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna do you care if I, you know, put some music on? I need something to help calm me down after the rehearsal." And he put it on. I was like, "Yo, is that Tycho?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, you know Tycho." And I'm like, "Dude, if you like Tycho, you'll like this." And we kind of like went down this like rabbit hole of different like chill atmospheric stuff, like, you know, the 36 fucking of Static. I forget. God, I'm gonna have to look it up.
I agree. Dev has all those good recommendations. He turned me on to All India Radio as well. If you're familiar with them, kind of similar, but All India Radio is all like, I don't even know what the story is. They just release so much material. It's weird.
Yeah. And there was I think 36 seconds of Static, 36 years of Static. I have 36 days of Static. I feel so terrible. But it's one word. I don't know. I'm gonna have to.
But it's 30 something seconds of something.
Yeah, something 36 of Static.
Oh, it's not 36 Crazy Fists.
No. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do enjoy 36 Crazy Fists, but it's more in line of like the atmospheric stuff, like, you know, like Tycho or, you know, what have you. Like Tycho's great. Like that's a vibe. Like some people like get in my car, like, you know, I would go pick up my friend and, you know, I've been listening to Tycho. They're like, "What the fuck are you listening to?" I'm like, this is how I imagine the universe sounds like. You know what I mean?
How I'd like it to be, for sure.
Yeah, like
I saw Tycho do a DJ set in Costa Rica at the Envision Festival a couple years ago. It was so dope. It was dope. It was like a 6 a.m. Final day set, and you know, we'd been up all night dancing and taking shrooms, and now showed up at the Tycho set, and it was just like all the friends that we had made at the festival, all like just losing our like you're coming down from being on this psychedelic thing and a 4-day thing in Costa Rica on the beach, camping in the jungle. It was like super emotional, and it was a great set.
Yeah, I could see that fucking Tycho at sunrise.
Yeah, it was,
you know, like I don't know, like I really like music. So if, you know, anybody out there, you know, find me if you know some music like this. I just really like music that's like super atmospheric. Like I feel like I'm in like an astral plane, or like I'm in like mid astral projection, just traveling through the universe and seeing all of the nebulas and, you know, what have you. Like I like that, where it kind of like takes you on, like, I mean, I don't do hallucinogens, but like I like music that makes me feel like I'm doing hallucinogens, you know.
Right.
And I kind of get that from you know, Tycho and, you know, other bands like that, where it's kind of like, you know, a space adventure.
Well, then definitely check out All India Radio.
All India
Radio. Yeah, it's it's up your alley. I mean, Dev, I only know about him because of Dev. Dev was like, dude, check it. And he had, when he gave me, I forget what might have been the slow light. The slow light, or I forget what it was, but it was an older album, and he was like, this whole album is amazing. And then I just went down the rabbit hole, and they've been putting out, sometimes, I don't know who it is, I haven't looked into it, or if it's just one person or multiple people, but they have a series of albums that are called Space, and then like Space Outtakes or whatever. And so there's all these kind of ethereal, you know, kind of what you're describing, like stuff that if you're traveling through the cosmos at light speed and seeing stars pass you and nebulas and all this stuff, they make interesting music for that type of vibe. So
that's dope. I'd followed that. And also, all right, so I found it. It's 65 days of Static, not 36.
You're so 65 days of Static. Okay.
See, and it's all one word. Like 65 is as in the number, but like it's all one phrase. So 65 days of Static.
All right.
Which is stupid, because now that I'm looking up on my computer, I'm like, oh, I follow them. I don't know why I thought 60. Yeah, I follow them. My top result. If I'd have put in 65 instead of 36, it would have came up.
Right.
65 days of Static. But yeah, I'm gonna check out this All Indie Radio. I followed him on here.
so much material, and you know, you'll get some kind of thematic, like some of it is almost, there's actually an album called Film Music, I think, which is great. There's some of it feels like it could be soundtrack material to film, and some of it just seems like it's a soundtrack to your trip. Some of it's like more like Tycho, you know, like, I don't know. He's got like more than just one mode. There's definitely a few modes within that catalog.
It's so weird. Like when it comes to certain genres of music, I need to feel a certain way. And maybe that's not weird, but like with atmospheric music, like I said, it needs to be like super astral and super vibey and, you know, atmospheric. And like with synthwave, I need it to feel like I'm driving through the desert in a Ferrari with the top down, like just smoking cigarettes at midnight, you know, just like driving through the desert, you know, like I need it to feel like that's the soundtrack, you know.
That's cool.
And with like metal, I really need it to just like I'm punching somebody in the face over and over again. It's just weird. I gravitate more towards more and it's funny because I could like one song from an artist and like hate the rest of their material, but it's just because that one song fits into what I, you know, feel like I crave from that style of music.
Sure.
You know, and like that's why I have all these like weird playlists and shit on Spotify, and you know, and I need to feel certain things. Like I literally have a depression playlist on Spotify. It's called Sad Songs to Cry To. And it's just a bunch of just different, regardless if the song's meant to be depressive, it's like, you know, it's written in minor and there's a lot of feeling and emotion in the songs. Sure. You know, like I'll give you an example right now. Like, you know, like Jealous by Labyrinth, like, you know, Morning Yearning by Ben Harper, Sorry by Halsey, you know.
I love Ben Harper.
Oh God, so do I. You know, just songs that are emotional. And what was the last thing I added to this? The last two songs I added to the Sad Songs to Cry To is Ordinary World by Duran Duran and When the Party's Over by Billie Eilish.
Great songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to have a good diversity. And I like that you're a playlister too, because I make playlists for yoga predominantly because I'm always setting the scene. But with Spotify being the dominant like playlist thing that you could just like make something and send a mixtape, you know, a modern day digital mixtape to somebody. It's so dope. Like I love it when somebody goes, oh, I don't know anything about that artist, but I would probably like it. I'm like, oh man, give me 5 minutes. I'll make you a mixtape and put a link in your thing. You know, you can just share it. So it's the younger person that used to have the dual cassette deck and would record songs off the radio.
Oh yeah, I did that.
And then try to make mixtapes for a girl, like you know, with the front part of the song is missing because I raced over and dove to press the record button, you know, to like catch that Def Leppard song, you know. Like, that was
I used to do that with MTV. I had a new metal playlist.
You did the VHS like record.
No. So I had a little boombox, and I would put it next to my TV. And anytime a music video, like, you know, which sucks because on TRL they used to like cut the music video short. It used to piss me off. So it'd be like, you know, Limp Bizkit's Rearranged. I'd be like, oh shit, I'm gonna miss it, you know. And you know, I did that with like, you know, Korn and, you know, some of the earlier POD stuff. And because I mean, when Limp Bizkit, when Rearranged, when Significant Other came out from Limp Bizkit, I was in 7th grade, dude. You know, so I think Issues had came out that year too from Korn. Wow. You know, and I think that is a super underrated Korn album.
It's good. It's actually, I might even like that one. I mean, I don't know. I like the other stuff from the early catalog and stuff too, but Issues was probably one of the first ones that I really dug. Yeah. Like all the way through.
Yeah, it's a great record. But yeah, I remember doing that. So it's nice to be able to have that. And I haven't made a playlist in a while because I'm looking through my playlist right now and I realize I have no synthwave fucking playlist, and I'm really mad at myself. So it's now I gotta like find music all over again. And that's been like the main thing of why I do playlists, because I think my three most put into playlists are the Sad Songs to Cry To playlist, Death Metal Dance Party, and Euro swing rock. Euro swing rock is just like, like bands like Soilwork and The Haunted. It's kind of like the European metal, and then of course Death Metal Dance Party is just old school death metal.
That's great. Cool, man. Well, dude, what's the best platform to follow you on? Are you on IG or Twitter? What's your favorite one that you interact with your fans at?
I think I'm most interactive on Instagram, but all my stuff is the same. Just at KS Konkiel, KSKONKIEL. You could follow me on Facebook, but I would just rather people just Instagram or Twitter, whatever platform you prefer. I tend to probably share a little bit too much on Twitter, but that's because I don't have a lot of followers. So I just kind of just say whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah, nice. Someday, someday they'll go back to those archives, and you'll be in so much trouble.
I know. I'm gonna get canceled so hard.
Yeah, dude.
I don't talk that much shit. But yeah, just Instagram at KS Konkiel, and maybe one day I'll release my shitty synthwave and people can listen to it. But for now, you can just find me there. You can check out my guitar pick store, which I will actually be having a new t-shirt and a new guitar pick within the next month or so, which is kylekonkiel.bigcartel.com. You could follow us on Instagram if you want to follow Bad Wolves, at Bad Wolves Official, at Bad Wolves on Twitter, or just go to Facebook at Bad Wolves. And
awesome.
Yeah, that's where you can find me doing the stuff and things and the thing and such.
Bro, I appreciate you, and I thank you for taking the time today. I'm going to cap it here just shy of our 2-hour mark.
Of course.
And I think you should make a synthwave playlist. I think I know what you need to do today.
Yeah.
When you get done, just like make your playlist.
I have to go to work in 2 hours. But I'm going to try. I'm going to sit in my backyard, get some rays, and just, kind of go into my little fucking imagination and see if I can put together a really dope synthwave playlist. And once I do, I'll send it to you.
Please. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Kyle, thank you so much, man. It's been an honor to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, dude. Yeah, and I'm so glad that you're doing well and the writing's going well. Looking forward to what happens with the band and how that translates into the next era for you and the guys. And yeah, keep in touch, man. Anything I can do for you. And if you want to take a trip up to Chico, I'm here.
Dude, I really appreciate that, man. And I actually might take that before we go. I'm actually thinking of before we start touring again, I was actually going to get a van and just drive up the coast and just stay at KOAs and just go to Seattle, come back, be super slow about it. Just go up the 101, go through the redwoods. Yep. I need to get away from LA, dude. I've been stuck here for a year and a half and I can't stand it anymore. I need to get out. I need to breathe that fresh beach air, that fresh redwood air.
Yeah. Let me know if you need any suggestions. I'd be happy to help you. I've lived all the way up to Seattle and back, so be happy to help you. Dude.
Thank you again for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Kyle. Hope you have a great day, bro.
You too.
I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Players Pick Podcast, Picks and Perspective with Chrys Johnson.